Welcome to the Chronic Couch with Eric and Chris. Today we're going to talk about pain medicine and hopefully better, healthier coping mechanisms that will help alleviate pain. For me, that's been walking. What has it been for you? If you had to pick one thing that's carrying you through and keeping you grounded through this journey of recovery, what would you say that is?
It's been getting outside.
Getting outside.
Getting outside has been my saving grace because spending so much time in the hospital, whether it be ICU or the rehab facility, I wasn't able to go outside. So I was looking at the same four walls, and even when I got out of my room in particular, I can only go to certain parts of the hospital, like, going to the workout room or going to just different things that I couldn't leave the floor or go outside because there was a fear of my leg getting infected. Mm-hmm. Granted, it still got infected, but long story short, I wasn't able to go outside for so long.
Yeah.
And as somebody who loves being outside, it really aided me. So now, I don't care if I have to crawl, I'm getting outside.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned the four walls closing in, and I so relate, and I know millions of people. Obviously, I don't personally know them, but there are millions of people that can relate. And those of you who are listening and watching, I would like for you to take it from us. We both agree and sit on the fact that being outside can be so curing and helpful in this journey. But before we hit our walking and being outside and catching healthy vitamin D, I do want to throw my thoughts and my experience of pain medicine your way. So what I will say is I grew up as a gymnast, as an athlete for almost 20 years. I think to date I've definitely had more than 10 surgeries. And so once you have surgery, as you know, you're given pain medicine. Pain meds are an epidemic, right? Mm-hmm. It's one of the number one leading killers, not to be a total downer, in the world. And so what I will say, to keep it brief and simple, is take the pain medicine if you absolutely need it. Now, after surgery, I recommend taking it for a couple days or a few days after, because you don't want to think you're Mr. Tough Guy and can handle the pain, because once that pain takes over, you will be very sorry, and it'll catch up with you, and you're almost SOL, shit out of luck. So after surgery, take it as prescribed. And then this is where it gets tricky, is getting off the pain meds. My situation when I had my first back surgery in 2022. Granted, I luckily have never struggled with any substance abuse with pain medicine. But I totally get how people could get hooked on it, because my situation, sometimes it takes 5 or 6 months to get the surgery that you need. So during this time, you're put on pain medicine to get you through. So, and I was taking it as prescribed. I wasn't overdoing it. When I had my first surgery back in 2022, I was ready to get off the pain meds. It had gotten to the point your body becomes so immune to it and so used to it that it's not even helping. So after surgery, yes, I weaned off the meds, but I had been on so much medicine. Not only was it, let's say, hydrocodone or oxycodone, but it was also all my nerve pain medicine, so the gabapentin, and then there's muscle relaxers. So after my surgery, my first back surgery a few years ago, I weaned off, but I didn't wean off properly, and I was not directed on how to wean off properly, so I went through withdrawals. Luckily, my mom was here, and she was able to get me to the hospital or to the doctor, and that was hell. We don't need to talk about what withdrawal is like, but it was hell. Again, I wasn't in a situation where I was addicted to pain medicine. My body became dependent upon it. So getting off of it was a struggle for my body. You know, I went through the sweats and the whole shebang that goes with withdrawals. My advice is, you know, take it as needed, but really try and avoid it because it can be bad and it can lead to bad things. Luckily, I didn't get to that point, but I know people who have gotten to a bad point with it. You obviously hear all the horror stories that happens. I mean, it's all over the news. These opioids and opioid addiction. So if that is something you are struggling with and you are not comfortable talking about that with someone, yes, I'm not a professional, but you can reach out to me. But I definitely recommend trying to find a way to lean on friends and family and get yourself out of that situation. For me, going into the second back surgery, so I've fast forwarded a few years from the 2022 incident. When I re-herniated, I did not take any pain meds because it just didn't help me. It wasn't really alleviating the pain. So I became addicted to getting outside and seeing the sun and walking. That is why we're kind of calling this episode Walk It Out. Now, walk it out because instead of swallowing pills, and again, there's nothing wrong with that. And yes, it can be super beneficial to lots of people. I don't want to knock that at all. But it's definitely something you should monitor. Maybe make a chart on your fridge while you're taking pain meds. That's kind of what I did. So you're keeping tally of how many you're taking. But I really leaned into walking and getting outside. Now, my situation got so intense, and I think this ties in with my athleticism, is I took it, of course, a step further, literally a step further, and there were days where I was doing 40,000 steps a day. And I definitely think it made the pain worse, but mentally it helped. So you got to kind of choose one because when you're waiting on a surgery, you can't be in a total place of peace because you're in so much pain.
Yep.
So I would be up, I would walk up to sunset, and it got to the point where I had these crazy blisters on my feet from just walking so much, and I was taping my feet, and I was in so much pain with my back that I was walking with my toes crossed, you know, because you're like clinching. But those were the days when it's like I knew I couldn't wash my bathtub, or I couldn't broom or sweep because I can't get down low and do those things. But I knew that if I could walk 7 miles or something, that it was like, okay, I'm going to be okay. And I was actually thinking about this last night on one of my walks, is the concept of time. And the concept of time gets totally lost when you're dealing with chronic pain. You mentioned the walls closing in. When those walls close in, you lose time. So my tip and my advice for a coping method, mine is walking, but if you can find something that keeps you grounded and a way for you to check in daily with yourself. Okay, today's Monday. I still do this to this day. I write something on my mirror, the date, the day, a goal, whatever it is. Lately which this is a sign of progression, I write things on my mirror for a week.
Okay.
So if you're at the beginning of your injury or your pain journey, and you're literally just trying to get through a day, sometimes it could be like an hour. Find a way to stay grounded, to check in with yourself, so that you're not losing the concept of time. Because I have a trip planned with my family. Again, my family lives across the country, and I'm like, damn, my niece is 4 years old. Where has the time gone? Because I've been dealing with this for 3 years. I feel like I have lost so much time. But with walking, you're able to see things in a better light. And that's kind of my views on walking. It has helped tremendously, and yes, I did take it to extremes. But I think anyone, and I know my surgeons and all my doctors have said, walk as much as you want. Walking is the best thing, not only mentally but also physically. Like I've mentioned in the past, I'm seeing this masseuse, and he says walk as much as you want. I think walking should be a universal method of activity, physical activity, but also mental stability. And for those of you who can't walk, like I have a buddy who's in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, he gets outside. He's outside as much as he can be, and we don't have to tell you all the science behind what being outside and what being immersed in nature can do for you. If you don't know, you can quickly Google it. All the benefits are there. I know you yourself are a sunset seeker.
That's right.
I too chase sunsets. I might not be running, but I'm walking towards them. Can you kind of tell me, and those who are listening and watching, because I am curious, because I thought I was kind of alone in this walk it out journey. So where are you with it?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been a progression to being able to walk it out, right? Because fresh out of surgery, I couldn't stand or sit up. Then I was in a wheelchair, and you can't physically walk with an external fixator in, right? Because your leg is just fixed in this position. So you kind of, if you tried, I mean, in theory, I guess you could, but in practice, it's not recommended whatsoever. So not being able to walk for months really set me back mentally and physically, because this is something in terms of getting outside and walking around or just getting motion through the body is paramount for recovery, right? So again, if you're able to walk, getting that circulation through is super important. That was what my surgeons and all my doctors were adamant about when I was discharged. Chris, don't go home and just sit your ass on the couch. Get up, get on the walker, mosey around the apartment, mosey down the hallway, get as much as you can, get as much blood flowing through your body, because it's basically been sitting there for a couple months. So I think that it's super important for people to just, movement in general, because it keeps your mind active. And again, if you're in a wheelchair or if you have limited mobility, being able to do, using your arms to get your wheelchair to get you outside, or, if you're in the extreme position where you're bedbound, opening up a window, getting some fresh air, really just synthesizing that outside feeling is important. And it's really important because I think that you are thinking you're limited to your circumstances, but there's always a way for you to get something that could be mentally beneficial for you. And again, that can be opening a window, getting some fresh air in, lighting a candle and turning on the air, like the AC, and getting like just a fresh scent around to kind of give your brain some new stimuli. So you can dive into whatever your situation calls for, but the main theme of all of this is just don't be stagnant, because the moment you let your body get stagnant, your mind gets stagnant. And the moment your mind gets stagnant, you start playing this really dangerous game of falling into what I call the abyss. And your brain starts to decline. As soon as your brain starts to decline, your body's going to start to decline, right? And it works in tandem. I mean, you see it, unfortunately, with elderly individuals. As the brain starts the cognitive decline, they start losing their bodily function. It begins to be these things. Now, while an injury may not cause it to be as drastic, and it may be reversible in a lot of cases, you do not want that to happen, right? Your body may be temporarily broken, but your mind isn't.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be. So finding ways to just challenge yourself daily to use your brain, and doing these mental gymnastics is a term I think we throw around a lot, is super important. And I think it's really key to talk about making it uniquely you, right?
Yeah,
So for
finding
us,
what works for
finding
you.
what works for you. So again, you and I both enjoy sunsets. For me, sunsets are the best way for me to enjoy the end of a good day, right? I get out, I'll walk, I'll do these types of things. When I could drive, I would get over to the beach and just park on ocean and just, put the top down and be chilling. And just sit here and, just let it take in the sounds, or walk across, decompress, right? It's just a breath of fresh air. And that's something that I think sunsets really do for me. And now, since I'm able to get out in the world a little bit more, they still do that for me. And as of late, I've been finding myself out in the world when the sun is setting, right? I'm not looking at it from the window, or I'm not looking at it from like a hospital bed. I'm actually out and looking at the sunset over a palm tree when I'm in Culver City, when I'm in Santa Monica, right? And I think that's something that it really makes me remember what it feels like to be alive.
It's almost like when you're in the thick of your pain or whatever you're going through injury-wise, and you're stuck inside and you see the sunset, or in my case, I was outside, but I really wasn't mentally outside. But once you get to the other side, you have a whole different perspective and appreciation, just for things like the sunset and the simpler things in life. I think that's probably one of the not only takeaways that I've taken out of being injured for so long, is just the gratitude. Really soaks in and stays with you.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're metaphorically walking towards your future of not being in such pain physically and mentally.
Yeah. And I think it's something important to just draw a parallel back to what you were mentioning before, as we kind of go into coping mechanisms, is walking is your coping mechanism. You mentioned it before. Instead of you just chasing pills, right, or just like throwing pills down, you're getting out, you're being active. So that does become your therapy.
Because that is a problem. It's actually, California is probably the best in terms of controlled substances. I've learned a lot about this, but the pain management doctors, the ones I've experienced, and I've seen a handful, they're not sharing these tips. Go for a walk. And that's why I think it's important that for us to relay it to you guys, because it really can help.
Yeah. And I think that I didn't have as an intense of a journey with the painkillers and like the pain management situations as you did, but I just remember not being able to sleep because I'm a side sleeper. And in a hospital bed, you ain't sleeping on your side, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when your leg is in some metal, where you got metal rods in your leg, you can't turn. So I'm not a back sleeper. So naturally, I'm just laying in bed, in this hospital bed, at these weird angles for my body. And I remember the only way I was able to get consistent night's sleep was taking Norco, right? And Norco is another one of those drugs where it kind of just puts you on, I don't know, it winds down your body. And I forgot what the chemical makeup of it is, but it's almost like a sleep aid mixed with like a stronger pain medicine.
So was it almost like your body felt a sense of euphoria?
Yeah, and it just
you're
kind
not tripping, but like you're just
right. You're not tripping at all, but it's like if I could, and again, I'll look it up next time I get a chance. But it's like a melatonin mixed with an ibuprofen, right? So it's just strong, and it just
What is it called?
And Norco.
Norco.
Norco, yeah. So every night at 9 o'clock, and it worked like clockwork. 9 o'clock, nurses come in. They already know Chris wants his Norco at 9. So then that way I'm knocked out by 10, right? So I had developed this system for me to be able to get a full night's rest because at the time my body needed it.
Damn, I wish I did.
I'm telling you. But the thing about it is, like you mentioned earlier, you really have to go into the mindset that this is a temporary fix. And you have to be able to understand the window in which you're using it. So for people out there with any sort of medication, you need to know the correct dosage for your body, because I need to take a larger dosage of medicine because I'm a larger person, right? You don't need to be taking my dosage if you're 5 feet tall and 100 pounds. It just doesn't work like that. You're going to overdo it. But you need to really understand what works for you, completely customizing what it is, but also the concept of cycling off of these medicines, because you need to give your body a chance to recover. Because if you're just constant go, 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 it's going to be bad really fast.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's important to say, okay, 2 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
Whatever cycling that you need to do is important, because like you mentioned, you may not get that information from a doctor. They're going to say, okay, we're going to do you on this course of medicine. And you're just going to realize, oh, damn, I've been taking this every day for 3 weeks. Like, let me look this up and see what the recommended, let me get on Reddit and see what other people are saying, like not what other doctors are saying.
Yeah. And I know for a fact that people with chronic back pain, sometimes I was on pain medicines for 5 months because my first go around was during COVID, and it took that long to see the surgeon. Now people have even more extreme situations where they're on pain medicine for years and years, and so they become reliant on these pain medicines. So again, I can't drill it in enough, the importance of doing your best to find an alternative pain alleviation. We talked about Epsom salt baths, lighting candles, just tying all that in. And if I could hike right now, I would hike up to the top of a mountain and scream how beneficial and how wonderful walking has been, and getting through your day. Let's say you're on the other end of your surgery or whatever it may be, and you're able to walk, and at the end of your work day or the end of your day, if you're a parent, whatever you're doing, if you can set aside and dedicate some time to getting outside and just walking and taking a moment for yourself, telling yourself you're going to be okay, this is going to be okay, all the things, all the positive reinforcement, that's what's going to pull you through, not pain medicine. It's the healthy habits that will really pull you to the other side.
Yeah, so I had actually just had a chance to look at what the combination of drugs are in Norco. And the reason why it's actually pretty scary is because it's actually hydrocodone, which is a Schedule II drug with a high addiction risk, mixed with Tylenol. So
it's like a cocktail.
A cocktail, right? Which is why you can only get it in hospitals. But it's one of those things that it has a high risk of addiction because it puts your body in this state of euphoria.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I remember that's why I stopped taking it as much, because they gave me some pills to take home, and they're still up there. Like I haven't touched them, right? Because I'm just like, okay, I'm realizing how much I'm relying on this just to get sleep. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just start taking some melatonin, or I'm going to start taking sleepy time tea, more natural remedies. Like if I get addicted to sleepy time tea, it's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah. If I get addicted to Norco, I got some issues. Yeah. So I think it's really understanding your medicines and the potential impact of them on your usage rate, and just understanding the possibility of addiction risk is extremely important, because again, you'll get a certain quantity, and it's very easy to get a resupply,
Yeah.
right? Especially if you're going to go to those lengths to say, oh, I need it, you're probably going to get it.
Yeah, and I would say out of personal experience, and I don't know, maybe you can attest to this. Pain medicine um, can be more be more hurtful to you and your body as opposed to beneficial. But I do like how you said you still have some in your cabinet, because what I learned and what my surgeon told me, and my surgeon is against pain meds. He's for it in certain situations and after surgery, but to bank and sit on some pain meds, because God forbid if shit turns bad and you need that, and it's like do or die situation. It's good to have a few emergency pills.
Oh, that's the truth. But that's the reality of it, right? Because the thing about it is, as we mentioned in last week's episode, is you can be in a situation where you got to get your ass to the emergency room and you're not going to be seen for hours.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit there for 3 or 4 hours just in agonizing pain when I have a potential outlet, and again, if you find yourself in that position where, you do have a bank and you do pop something, just disclose what it is that you took when you go in there, because that's going to determine what the plan of action is when you do get seen. But I think, that's good advice, because you're not going to have access to any form of help. If you go to the emergency room, unfortunately, I know about this from when I had pneumonia/pleuritis, is if your heart isn't beating out of your chest or super low, you're going to go in, they're going to take an EKG to make sure everything is everything is good with your heart, your impulses. If your EKG comes back abnormal or normal, they're going to send you right back outside.
Yeah, and you got to wait.
Yep. And there's going to be people in there with probably more drastic things than you. And again, they've been in there, so they're going to get seen. But you're going to go in there and likely you're going to have to sit. So me personally, I'd rather not sit in pain. And I'd rather just, have this kind of bridge to hold me over, this flotation device to get me to where I need to go.
Yeah, so I think it's like it's learning how to walk the fine line with pain medicine, being super careful. And I know that I've had friends who are going through their first surgery or whatever it may be, and they're like, they find great relief from taking pain medicine, but it's also like it might make them feel good too.
Yeah.
You're getting a little high or stoned. I never really experienced that, luckily, but just being very careful, because I think you mentioned the addiction, how addictive these medicines are. And that's something a lot of the times I don't think people really think about.
Yeah, it's super important. I know that a lot of people, even if it's just regular everyday shit from the pharmacy, right? If you go to a doctor, they give you a short course of antibiotics. You'll go get it. You'll get the prescription filled. They'll say, "Do you have any questions for the pharmacist?" Right? Pharmacist will come over. They'll give you kind of the overview. But read those packets, please. The ones that come on with the multicolored sheets of paper, read that. Because again, that is the information you need to know in case shit goes left.
Yeah.
And I think it's super important to just not gloss over that. If you feel as though there's a risk of addiction or risk of anything kind of going wrong, is really understanding what you're signing up for. Because, this short-term relationship with these opiates, it's like really understanding what you're signing up for, because again, you may not have had an addictive personality in the past, but because your body's in so much pain, it's going to do some shit you may not have ever seen before, because you've never been through it.
Yeah, and it probably will help and alleviate your pain. And I think that's why it's so important to just really be on top of it. Especially like if you're in your 20s and 30s, like you're too old for that shit, man. Like, grow, like, you don't lean on that too much. I do want to say, and this might be a good ending point. But feel free to, expand on this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just Google, like I just did, why does walking feel so good?
Mm-hmm.
AI overview says walking feels good because it triggers the release of endorphins, it boosts circulation, which you hit on,
Yep.
And improves mood and reduces stress.
I mean, it sounds like a grand slam to me, 4 for 4.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's overview of what it does for us. But I think the thing is, while walking may be beneficial to everybody, right? I think it's important to just remember, maybe for our viewers or listeners out there that can't walk, you have to find out what your equivalent of walking is. What allows you to escape your physical condition, to feel better mentally, to find that euphoria in a healthy way that isn't relying on pills, that isn't relying on things that could be harmful to your health and your body in general. Because a lot of these pain medicines, they have adverse effects on your organs.
Yeah.
Long-term effects too, right? So I think that's one of the things to call into question is, how bad do you really need it? Life or death, I really get it.
Yeah.
But once you get out of that phase of, okay, I don't need this for life or death anymore, really reconsider the importance of that, because that could easily be replaced with an alternative therapy, whether it's getting outside, whether it's, getting back into the gym or exercising. When I couldn't really walk around like that, like my big ass was doing chair yoga, right? Just sit in a chair, or I have like some 3-pound weights over here for my Peloton, just doing simple shit like this and just getting more circulation through your body, because that is what kind of keeps you going, as I mentioned before, physically and mentally. And I think that it's finding ways to make your path to recovery uniquely you, because there is no one size fit all.
No.
While your injury may be quote unquote linear, your recovery won't be, because everybody's different.
Yeah.
Everybody's body's different. Everybody's mind is different. So finding out what works for you is the most important path to victory.
Yeah. And again, bringing it back to the 4 walls closing in, I think you feel like you're losing your sense of freedom. Whether you're bound to the bed, you can't move your leg, you can't walk. So finding whatever is your sense of freedom and hope. So if you're stuck in bed, if you're able to somehow hook up, like what I did, a TheraBand on the rod of my headboard, and that's how I would move my arms, laying on my back. I do want to say one more thing. We mentioned sunsets. Sunsets often evoke a sense of peace and beauty due to their vibrant colors. It's basically saying that the warm colors trigger positive emotions and the release of dopamine, which is, what makes you feel good in your brain. So that's why I like to mix the two. I walk towards the sunset.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, for my people out there on the East Coast, y'all get sunrises, but that's not an excuse, because I spent a lot of time in Manhattan, and some of the sunsets over New Jersey, over the Hudson, are really nice.
Yeah.
So I don't hear no excuses out of y'all. We're lucky if you live in California and you live along the coast. We obviously have the ocean to go enjoy those on, but wherever you are, there's a sunset, right? And I think it's something to, if you, even if it's not a sunset for you, it may work for us. It may not work for you. I think one of the things that, aside from sunsets, that's really allowed me to cope with my injury or my recovery is finding ways to immerse myself in music, right? Or, if there's certain types of music that you like that allows you to kind of go to a space that you feel safe or feel comfortable, right? So whether, for me, that's progressive house or deep house, where I can just really get lost in the music. And, if it's a 4 or 5 hour mix, and I can just kind of like chill here on the couch and have it playing, or if I'm working, whatever it is, like that stuff that works for me, because it allows me to kind of just get lost in the process. And mentally, it's just such a release and a hit of dopamine that's a lot more healthy.
It's a healthy escapism.
It's a very healthy escapism, right? I'm gladly going to put on some music that I enjoy, as opposed to going up against some Norco just so I can get some sleep, or, aggressively using marijuana.
Because that's just a temporary fix.
That's all it is. It's a temporary fix, right? And I think that it's something that is important to really harp on one last time is just understanding you, understanding your journey, and understanding where you want to go. And however you're going to end up getting there is not going to be an over-reliance on pain medication. I promise you. It's a short-term fix for a long-term problem.
Yeah. I think when you're in the thick of whatever you're going through and it feels like it, when it rains, it pours, if you will, just know that your sunset is just a sleep away or it's a week away, but just know that there's a sunset every day, and just try and tackle the healthier habits versus the temporary fixes that we've talked about.
That's very true. Yeah, and I think that's, this week we're not going to drag y'all through as much as we did last week, but I think it's super important for us to continue to have these conversations because we want to continue to talk to more of y'all. We love that y'all reach out in the comments and just talking about how, or even reaching out to us directly via DM is really important because it gives us the ammunition to keep going, right? And providing this safe space because, it may be cathartic for us. But again, we want y'all to come along on this journey with us. And it's important to keep us going too, because when y'all are engaging with us, it makes us know we're giving value.
For sure.
And it keeps us going because it's like, all right, we're helping ourselves, we're helping y'all. And this is just one big ass group effort. So please keep those comments coming in, keep the shares coming in, share with somebody out there that you think could potentially use this information.
Yeah.
Even if they just want to escape, again, I always mention traffic, but it's every day. So, we want to be that ride along with y'all. Who knows? This podcast could potentially be your sunset. If you really enjoy us talking about these types of things and, you want to join the conversation, reach out to us with things you like us to talk about.
Yeah, I know. I wish I had something to look forward to listen to, and to relate to when I was going through the thick of my injury. So like you said, I think if you know anyone who's struggling, and it doesn't have to be with a physical injury. I recently met someone who's epileptic, and they started listening to our podcast, and it gives them something to look forward to so they don't feel so alone and isolated.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of just the mic drop right there.
Yeah.
It's a community effort. It's a joint effort. The Chronic Couch is, y'all can't see it in the frame or if you're listening, but it's big enough to fit all of us.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's definitely big enough to fit all of us. So there's always space for y'all here on the Chronic Couch. And that's this week's episode.
Yeah, man.
No sponsors this time. But like I said, they are coming. They're on the way. So we will have our sponsors soon. But again, thank y'all for rocking with us on yet another episode of the Chronic Couch. My name's Chris. This is Eric.
I'm Eric.
And we'll see y'all in another couple of weeks with some updates. Got a pretty big surgery coming up. So can't wait to fill y'all in on how that goes.
All right, we'll see y'all.
All right, peace, y'all.